Getting ready to exams? Having ambitions for B2, C1 or C2 certificate? If you're having an appetite for B2 app diplomas, this podcast is for you. If you are still wondering how to effectively develop your skills and enrich your vocabulary so you can use it in practice, this podcast is also for you. If you feel you have a kind of a passive knowledge, so plenty of structures and vocabulary that you find difficult to put into practice, this podcast is also for you. It's Kasia speaking to you, and I know it's been a while, but I'm finally here, ready to give you some tips on how to develop your skills, show off during your writing and oral tasks, and impress the examination board. Before we start, I'd like to emphasize on one thing. If you already are communicative and have a command of, let's say, survival English, so you can easily communicate on holiday, at the restaurant, or in case of emergency, answer yourself a question if you really want to jump levels up. Make it clear with yourself you really want it. Why so? Being communicative B1/B1+, you already have the base which needs developing when you start higher levels, and it requires some effort. Our brains are lazy by nature, and if they can, they will go for an easier synonym or grammar structure or a phrase to express what is needed to be expressed. It's easier to go for simpler solution, and I totally feel you. This is how our brains work. It's like with a mother tongue. Sometimes we are more eloquent, sometimes we are not. So ask yourself if you really want it, since at B2+ levels you have to show off. You have to impress people, you have to prove you can use complex, advanced, and fancy expressions with ease. When it comes to examination itself, the examination board already knows or assumes you are communicative. So not only do you have to be fluent, but also super confident with your rich vocabulary and wide range of grammar structures. And it may be hard, it may be arduous, since C1+ levels require you to have 2 or 3 different ways to express one idea. Nevertheless, in case of some self-doubts and asking yourself, why bother? What's the point of all of it? There is more to it. For example, having the command of advanced structures will facilitate the understanding of books, series, movies, and songs. You should be able to understand natives better and be understood, and you may acquire a good command of slang and colloquial expressions. So, as you may have noticed, there is more than just a win-win situation. Okay, and I digressed a bit too much. But why have I stressed on this matter so much? Since I've come across opinions of students who, on the one hand, wanted to develop their skills at higher levels, but on the other, at some point, they were questioning the importance of learning them. And we don't want it. And now, let's figure out what lies behind the terms rich vocabulary and grammar structures. And let's have a closer look at the vocabulary first. So, it is a good command of phrasal verbs, and I know you love them, idiomatic expressions, proverbs, and more advanced synonyms to very common words such as get, do, have, good, bad, hard, and so on, and slang and colloquial expressions. How to acquire them? Watch a lot, read a lot, listen to podcasts. All of them are an infinite source of rich vocabulary, everyday expressions, slang, and colloquialisms. Try to memorize a few of them and put it somewhere in your notes, or create a ridiculous story or a sentence using them. Mind the trap and check a correct context and accuracy. At every level, the words and synonyms may be used in a completely different context, and since you want to sound natural, it is advisable to check a correct context in an English dictionary such as Cambridge or Oxford. There is a difference between being tall and high. There is a difference between driving a bus and riding a bus. And what's also worth doing is checking the most common collocations. Once they are used correctly, they will make you sound like a native speaker. And what do I mean by that? A very easy example, do you do or make pizza? So synonyms are very often helpful, but we need to stay alert. Also, apart from checking the accuracy, find out if the word is still in use. What I come across as a teacher quite often is the use of old-fashioned expressions. Students look for synonyms, and I highly appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot, of course. But they go for the most obsolete and the ones that don't fit in the context, since it is too formal or too official. By the way, it happens quite often with my Spanish, Italian, and French students, since the words function in everyday context in their mother tongues. But in English, they're one-to-one equivalents. I mean, they look like that, they sound like that, like one-to-one equivalents. The sounding and spelling is almost the same or even the same, but they're not used in modern English anymore. And it's either this or they are reserved for the more formal language. Another way to develop your skills and enrich your vocab is to create word families. In other words, you should practice word formation. And I know that's another exercise you're big fans of. Anyway, imagine how much you can acquire by making from a one innocent noun an adjective, or adjectives, of course, adverb, fixed expressions, idiomatic expressions. Add some prefixes and give it an opposite meaning. And here you are, one word turned into 5. Furthermore, find homonyms, so words pronounced the same way with a completely different meaning or spelling. Or find tricky pairs or groups of words that will make your brain go crazy in terms of spelling and pronunciation. So, for example, ingenious, indigenous, genuine, genius, ingenious. Or I think I said it already, so ingenuous. What else you can do is to subscribe a word of the day. Every day there is a new word or expression or idiomatic expression or proverb in your inbox. And again, create a sentence with such an expression. Feeling creative and having a vivid imagination? Create an absurd story. Feeling your level is not that high and advanced yet, but you want to practice vocab and you need some consolidation? Make a shopping list in English. Cook something using a recipe in English. Be a curious child asking yourself, how do I call this? How do I call that? Etc. Be your own teacher and explain some grammar rules or illustrate the use of vocab to yourself. Another tip, find idiomatic expressions or proverbs you like the most or you find the most useful, or you use similar ones in your mother tongue every day. The probability you will go for them when speaking English is higher. Go for the most universal ones, which can fit in various contexts. You don't need to know hundreds of them. Several dozen already prove you have rich vocabulary. Learn a few by heart, like the word dog or cat or good or bad or get or do or have. If such words are coded in your brain, the likelihood you will go for them during a stressful atmosphere while taking an exam decreases. And again, you will show off and impress others with your language skills. And please, don't SWOT lists of vocabulary. It's one of the most common, unfortunately, and the most absurd approaches while learning. It teaches you nothing. Everything stays in your short-term memory. And what is even a bigger absurd is telling students at very strong levels to SWOT it with their mother tongue equivalents, which can prove nothing. Because it doesn't prove that you can use these words in a correct context. Some words at advanced levels are somehow a mixture of different feelings, of few meanings, and one word expresses it itself, and it doesn't have a one-to-one equivalent in your mother tongue. So learning the word with the equivalent from a dictionary in your mother tongue is useless if you don't know the correct context. And if you really don't feel the word, it's like with the word creepy or fancy or eerie. I cannot find the proper word, the accurate equivalent in Polish. And maybe in your languages you have it, but I cannot find it. So I need to use them as they are without putting them into Polish, translating them into Polish. And when I explain such words to my students, I always describe them. I describe the whole, like the feelings, the context, the atmosphere in which you can use it. So yeah, don't sweat lists of vocabulary. And talking to yourself is very useful, but you may find it inconvenient or weird. If you attend conversation classes or any other classes, it's like good for you because it will force you, and please force yourself to use the expressions you want to learn during the class. Not only will you have a chance to use it in a correct context, but you may also impress the group and the teacher. And even if you note it down, but you will not use it during the class, your brain will memorize it anyway while writing it down. If you're not that lucky, or you simply don't have time to participate in the classes, try talking to yourself at first, just in your mind, and then maybe try to open your mouth, and it will also help you memorize the words that you want. And what about grammar structures? Which ones are considered advanced or will prove your good command of English? Let's say using tenses in a correct context, all the tenses that you are supposed to know at B2 level and B2 plus, B2 up, C1, C2. Conditionals, your favorite, I know. So from 0 to 3. And of course, mixed ones. So let's say 2 plus 3, 3 plus 2, 1, 2, 3, 3 plus 1. And the so-called pseudo-conditionals as well. Inversion, emphasis, fronting. In passive voice, the casual one, the structure have something done or have somebody do something. Or the impersonal passive. So he is said to have done something. He is said to be... blah, blah, blah. He was said to have acquired something, blah, blah, blah. Or it is said that, blah, blah, blah. If you study grammar, you should know what I mean. And how to practice them? Practice them the same way you practice vocab. So stories, like creating stories, catching it from your favorite series or songs or movies. Stay alert. Structures considered as grammar mistakes tend to appear in movie dialogues and songs. And here's a tricky thing. To sound like a native, you may use structures which look incorrect at a first glance. But the spoken language and the examination language are quite different. So have it in mind that, of course, you have like a complete freedom to use the structures considered as mistakes, but to make a mistake, grammar mistake, first you need to learn the rule. That's the tricky part as well. And then you can use them, let's say, like in a way that they're considered incorrect. I hope I'm making myself clear here. But please, don't use it in your writing tasks during the examination. You cannot, because as I mentioned, the spoken language, everyday language, and the examination language, that they differ a lot. But yeah, you can use them in the class. I mean, if you use some slang as well, your teacher and your group should appreciate it. And other structures as well, like other grammar structures, using them in the class is a good way to memorize them, to practice them. And you will impress your classmates and the teacher. And put a few of them in your writing and oral tasks, like passive or emphasis or inversion, conditionals. But please don't overdo it. Don't overuse it. You want to sound natural, not uptight. Yeah? And adjust it to the level of formality. And to sum up, just find the best medium and surround yourself with English. Learn with pleasure and fun. Surround yourself with the language will prevent you from regressing. Remember, if you don't use it, you lose it, which I am a great example of. Haven't been using the Arabic language for years and my strong intermediate level has gone. And now what I can tell you is what beautiful weather we have today. And by the way, I learned crazy Arabic grammar through explaining it to my friend, and she explained it to me in turn. So I can serve as another good example, maybe more useful one this way, right now, that the teacher's method that I mentioned today proves itself useful. So practice, and enjoy it. And you'll find out you've made progress sooner than you would expect. It was Kasia speaking to you, and till next time. Bye-bye.